Hello, children, and welcome to Fruit Stories. I'm Blossom, the human.
And I'm Petals, the human.
And we're here because we have some questions.
That's right.
Here at Fruit Stories, we plan on taking an in-depth critical perspective on Veggie Tales.
This week's episode was Where's God When I'm
Scared?
In this episode, we will be talking about Junior Asparagus getting over his fears.
Then, after the break, we'll be looking at a biblical perspective on fear, with the story of Daniel and the lion's den.
Don't forget the silly song.
Oh no! Petals, I forgot the silly song.
Blossom, you can't forget the silly song. It's like
I
the
know.
quintessential part of the show.
I know, it's true. But first, we have a viewer-submitted question from Bobby Johnson, who writes, Dear Fruit Stories, why do Larry and Bob travel at night to look for kids who watch scary movies to tell them that the Lord and Creator of the universe is way bigger than those other made-up characters? That's a great question, Bobby. And a great segue into our first segment.
Then versus now.
So in the episode, Junior's mother is in the kitchen and she's, I suppose, cooking or cleaning or doing some other typical...
But at night, which is kind of strange.
Yeah, that was kind of strange that she was cooking and cleaning or making dinner or something at night. But even stranger was the fact that Junior, who's only 5 years old, was allowed to watch this scary movie that he was watching in the first place.
Nowadays, there are parental controls and things like Netflix and Hulu that keep kids from watching things that their parents don't want them to see.
So to start off our discussion, I would like to take a look at one of the beginning scenes when we're first introduced to Junior and his mom. Now, for those of you who aren't aware, Veggie Tales is actually chock full of pop culture references. In Where's God When I'm Scared, Junior Asparagus is watching a film which is a spoof of Frankenstein called Frankencelery. Now, if you're like me and you went to university, you've probably read Frankenstein, which begs the question, at what point in the movie was Junior watching for there to be a scream? Who was it that was being murdered while a 5-year-old was watching? These are the questions that Big Idea will probably never tell us. Now, Mr. Petals.
Yes, Miss Blossom.
Oh, you can just call me Blossom, that's fine.
Okay.
Mr. Petals, my question is, why is it that Junior Asparagus was afraid of this movie he was watching and not of these two strangers that literally fell through his ceiling?
You mean Bob and Larry?
I just called them trespassers.
That's what they are. And I have no idea. And why didn't they introduce Frankencelery right at the beginning? They chose to introduce him at the end to make him feel better.
That also doesn't make any sense. But Veggie Tales starting out had a lot of questionable decisions. So when Bob and Larry are trying to get Junior Asparagus to not be afraid anymore, they tell him about God and how God has created all living things on the planet. But the specific wording that they used was very interesting to us here at Fruit Stories.
They said plants, animals, and people.
They are vegetables.
Which are plants. Kind of. No? Am I wrong? Blossom?
I'm not a doctor. So the implication here is that either they are people and humans don't exist, or they are acknowledging that humans do exist. You know, Mr. Petals, I was gonna say that Larry actually sounds really interesting in these first couple of episodes.
How do you mean?
I mean that he sounds different than he does in later episodes. He has a different voice.
Puberty.
Or... Nah.
Hey Blossom, do you have a water buffalo?
I don't have a water buffalo.
Well, me neither. And that's the premise of this week's Silly Song.
Silly song time. It's time for the silly song. Yeah! This week's silly song is Everybody's Got a Water Buffalo. Because Veggie Tales is animated, the creators could have done anything. They could have made the silly songs look any way that they wanted to. But they chose intentionally to make it look very lo-fi. In the clip, you can clearly see that Larry is in front of a backdrop on the kitchen counter. In the song, Larry assumes that everybody has a water buffalo, and then he goes on to describe what that water buffalo looks like. But Archibald doesn't agree.
He's a buzzkill.
I mean, that's one way of looking at it. You could just say that Archibald was pointing Larry in the right direction as far as getting him to understand that maybe not everyone does have a water buffalo. Maybe not everyone can afford a water buffalo.
Maybe not everybody wants a water buffalo.
I sure don't.
Well, really? I kind of want a water buffalo.
I mean, they shed everywhere.
Oh, never mind. Moving right along, Archibald resorts to violence to stop Larry from assuming that everybody has a baby kangaroo.
This is actually a pretty common theme when it comes to Veggie Tales. A lot of the episodes do entail some kind of physical or violent act against other characters. In this case, Archibald literally runs over Larry for not only assuming that everyone has a baby kangaroo, but not stopping the assumptions from earlier after Archibald asked him not to. And this is a really interesting message to give to children.
And just like the source material, the second half of this episode was Daniel and the Lion's Den. The creators made some interesting editing choices.
It's clear that in the beginning, the animators for Veggie Tales were new to the game from their interesting choices when it came to cutting, framing, and general execution of the animation.
Speaking of interesting choices, hey Blossom!
Yeah?
Did you know that the characters in Veggie Tales were originally supposed to be candy bars?
I did not know that, in fact. Why would they make that change from candy bar to vegetable?
Well, you see, first you ask why. Well, why has been plaguing men for time immemorial. Statesmen, philosophers, educators have all been asking the ultimate why. What was the question?
The wife of the guy who made Veggie Tales didn't think that parents would appreciate Bible verses and stories being taught by candy bars and figured that vegetables and fruits would do better with Christian moms and dads.
But wouldn't that make children not want to eat vegetables? Who wants to eat Bob and Larry?
I mean, they're my special friends, and we're both vegetarians, but I don't... Do you eat your special friends? I don't eat mine. So Daniel's thrown into the lion's den with the lions, and all hope seems lost. And again, as a child, that was terrifying. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this beautiful, shining light just envelops the entire area, and a peaceful song is played.
What did you think of the portrayal of angels in Veggie Tales?
This episode hits right in my big gay heart, and I can't handle it. Oh my gosh, it's so pretty. One of the things about some of the songs in Veggie Tales, almost all of the songs actually, is they still hold up. And that could be argued that that's from a nostalgic perspective. But I truly do believe that the music in Veggie Tales holds up a lot better than the show itself. Oh, I'm starting to get a little hungry. Are you hungry, Petals?
I'm famished.
How about some pizza?
Speaking of pizza, There's an ongoing gag in Veggie Tales where pizza is referenced in a biblical sense.
This is the first episode that running gag makes an appearance. As Daniel is leaving the lion's den, he thanks the lions, who I guess can also speak, for giving him pizza.
And who doesn't love pizza?
Apparently not scallions.
At the end of the episodes, Bob and Larry talk directly to the audience. Is that a thing anymore?
I don't really think it is. Is it? In the 90s, villains always seemed to have the best songs. The wise men in this episode talk about dragging Daniel down to the ocean and letting him rot in jail. It's terrifying. There is so much about Veggie Tales that is not appropriate for kids.
Anyhow, at the end of the episode, they give a lesson using scriptures about morality and what have you. In this episode, it was, "So do not fear, for I am with you." What does that mean, Blossom?
I honestly don't to this day know. Because I have a lot of anxiety. A lot of anxiety. And when I'm told to just not be afraid, that doesn't really help. Which leads me to believe that regardless of your own personal beliefs, it might not be the most effective means of assisting a child when they're afraid. Comfort might have been a better tactic. As far as the moral questions that this episode raises, I'm gonna say it's probably not relevant in a modern context. However, there are plenty of gags in this episode that still hold up.
Everybody loves silly songs.
I mean, I feel like that's about as much of an assumption as everybody's got a water buffalo, Mr. Petals.
You're right.
Well, that's all the time that we have today here at Fruit Stories.
I'm Petals the human.
And I'm Blossom the human.
Catch up with you next time.